Welcome to the Thought Balloons podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Fulsham, and with me today is a good friend and artist, Cryomera. Welcome to the show, Cryo.
Hello.
Right off the bat here, I know you've explained this to your viewers on Twitch, but for anybody who's listening to this podcast and doesn't know the story, Cryomera is a very unique handle. Can you explain how you came up with that?
It's actually funny because it sounds like this, I think to some people, profound word, but really it's just a portmanteau of cryo and chimera. I I was back in 2016, I was on public transit trying to come up with a cool name for a possible art account because I decided, I want to do this. I want to go ahead and kind of put myself out there. And one of the first words I came up with for an account name was Cryomera. And I shouldn't even just say an account name, just a name in general. And I actually didn't like it at first. I was like, I kind of get the idea because, for example, Chimera is this beast composed of like several conflicting parts, which I felt like really resonated with the type of artwork I do. And then cryo is usually a prefix that you hear in sci-fi. And that also I felt kind of represented my artwork. And so I was creating this huge list of just all of these like fake names, I think. And I eventually just deleted all of them. And I was like, Cryomera just has the right ring to it for the kind of things I make. So I'm going to stick with it. And I have since.
Nice. Having seen your artwork, I definitely think the Chimera thing fits. Yeah. It's really unique as well. And
Thank you. I do like
I
the
think it's
beast.
memorable. Yeah.
Thank you.
I dig it.
Thank you.
But speaking of artwork, you do printmaking and inking and like a whole bunch of like really cool stuff, stickers. And how how did you come to be interested? I want to start by something that I've done, but I find it to be super laborious. How did you come to be interested in printmaking?
It was actually an accident. So if you don't mind a bit of a long story, I guess.
That's the podcast is for.
Ayo, yeah, it's I always like to tell people the story because it can kind of show where this obsessive interest can derive from something so simple. But before I started like streaming on Twitch and before my art kind of, I don't know if you'd even say take off, before I've further established my presence. I was in the year end of 2018, 2019, I was going to comic conventions to sell my artwork because I had gotten laid off from one of my jobs, and I was like, all right, let's spend this entire year trying to figure out if I can make it selling my art. And so during that time, you're not just like selling, obviously, your prints, your handouts, things like that. You're also kind of gauging like the best way to market yourself, how to package your materials, how to kind of put a nice bow on it, I guess. And I saw one of my friends, and I still do this where I put my artwork in cellophane wrappers. Almost everybody does it. And these artists known as Murd Comics, MURD Comics, they used recycled paper bags and just put a stamp on the front. And I was like, hey, that's a cool idea. Can I like copy it? They're like, duh, you can. So I was looking into getting rubber stamps, and I was thinking about it, and I'm like, like you could pay $25 for the simple rubber stamp, which I totally gave into. But I was thinking, looking at it, thinking, like I could make this myself. Like I shouldn't have to pay $25 for it. And then on top of it, if I wanted to make another rubber stamp, I already had the materials ready to do that. Like I'm a kind of person that whether I mean it or not, my art just ends up having a lot of detail in it. And so I was like, yeah, I can dedicate myself time to creating this if I'm feeling really convicted about it. And so as I looked into rubber stamp making, I had no idea that it would like introduce me into like a world of art where people would take X-Acto knives and like special stencil cutters and make these rubber stamps, which later introduced me to lino cutting, and that's linoleum cutting. A lot of people are familiar with it because you probably took, it's probably like a short term in art school. Everybody usually takes it from like middle school to college at least once.
Right.
And I took it in, I think high school was the last time I didn't even know it was called. We just called it stamp making. I didn't know we were using linoleum or using the same cutting tool. So it was not only like nostalgic for me in a weird way, but I didn't realize what the potential was for this art form. And I was a kind of person that with my pen and ink drawings, because of my graphic design experience, I was like putting filters and transparencies on it. So it kind of looked like a grunge effect. And a lot of people had asked me if I was a printmaker because of this. And I thought, oh no, I'm just adding that to make it look cool. So I was like, wait, you're telling me I can do that analog? Like, this is amazing. And so I started out, I think the first thing I ever did was like this really choppy lino cut commission. That was like my first project. And then it kind of led to this idea that's like, well, what if I make lino cut stickers? What if I put this on adhesive paper, laminate it, and sell it? And so after seeing like all the things that people can do with lino cut, wood cut, just printmaking, relief printing in general, it's all these different terms. I started small with making stickers. And then kind of from there, I kind of upped the canvas up to the art size and got comfortable with it enough that I was like, screw stickers, let's make prints. And then like, screw prints, let's make t-shirts, which I didn't think was possible. And that's actually now how I'm making my living, partially, is doing like woodcut t-shirts or like Sintra cut, which is another material, by the way. And so it all started just by looking at a person that made a rubber stamp and thinking, I could do that. And it's just turned into whatever this is, I guess.
Man, that's really cool. Cause like for me, and I wonder if I would have had a different like reaction to the medium if I had discovered it that way. Like for me, it was like I did like the linoleum cuts in high school, but where I like really got into doing it was, I took printmaking in when I was taking my bachelor's of fine arts. I was getting my degree in illustration, so I had to take all of the 2D courses as part of that degree, and one of those classes was printmaking. And I don't know like how how much effort goes into like the things that you do, but like I was like, my arm is gonna fall off.
Oh man.
Like doing like scrubbing like ink into the plates, and like
Oh,
it's
yeah.
madness.
Yeah, that's a different, just to clarify for the audience, the kind of printmaking I do is relief printing because I'm carving out and the ink is rolling onto the top layer. But it sounds like you were dealing with intaglio, where you actually
Well,
have
we
to
did we did like everything. We did what are they called? Mono prints, where you like paint the
Okay.
ink right onto the like onto some fucking like PVC or
Yeah, it's like a
plexiglass or
gel plate.
whatever. And then we did lino, we did wood block, we did acid etching. We ran the gamut with like a lot
Yeah.
of different stuff. But like it was always I guess with the relief we did get to use rollers, come to think of it. But
Yeah.
the man, that those plates, those acid etched plates, you take like cheesecloth, basically rolled up into a ball, and then you like wrap a layer of it like so it's smooth on the outside. And then you like stamp the ink and like work the ink into it. And
Oh yeah, I haven't even touched that stuff. Like making, I don't even call it printmaking. They were like, when we learned how to do lino cutting in high school, like it was negligible. They were like, we're just trying to get you to pass this class. Like they didn't
Right.
care about like teaching us how cool it was. They were like, okay, we spent 1 week on this, on to the next thing. And so
Hmm. Hmm.
I know about the kind of stuff that you're doing, but I haven't even come close to like experimenting with it. Maybe one day, but you know.
Yeah, so that maybe that like that organic kind of introduction to it, sort of like um like the out of necessity, like doing it for your business, but then realizing that you could take it, to more intricate places, but doing that through a medium that you actually enjoy. Like I
Yeah,
liked the lino cut stuff, like that was pretty fun,
for
but
sure.
printmaking in general is just a lot of work. Like
A
it
lot of
is just a lot
effort,
of like tedious labor, you know?
for sure. There's some people that they kind of don't know why I do what I do or how I stick with it. But you know, it doesn't like as somebody like I don't mean to put lots of detail in my work. It's just kind of almost stress relief for me.
Hmm.
I say often it scratches the itch, and that's kind of what relief carving, I guess, does for me. The more detail, the more I feel like I can kind of calm down, sort of peel away the stress in a way.
Right. Yeah. No, I get that. Like I I think for me it's a similar thing. Not with detail, but people often remark about like the speed at which I work. Like
Mhm.
once
Yeah.
I start drawing something, like I usually go really fast. And that's the thing that scratches the itch for me, because I hate spending more time on something than what I think is like the bare minimum of effort. It
Oh
sounds
man,
bad, but like it's just, it's a thing of like I like hitting a deadline, and
for
I
sure.
like and I really honestly, like I don't like spending a lot of time on a single thing. So
Mhm.
that's why I like really like comics, right? Is like
That makes a lot
the
of sense. I
a
never thought of it like that.
whole page might take a long time, but a whole page isn't one picture. It's like
Mhm.
4 or 5 little pictures. And I can do each little picture in like an hour or less, probably, depending on the size of the panel and the detail in it. And I
And
get
I
that little
never,
hit of dopamine every like hour or
yeah,
so as I'm working on it.
yeah, I haven't. I even dipped my toes in sequential art. I actually am like intimidated by it, and so that suddenly makes a lot of sense that I hadn't contemplated before.
Yeah, I mean, and I think a lot of us are intimidated by the amount of detail that you put into your work.
Ew.
It's so interesting to like talk to artists and hear like how we're basically all afraid of doing what other people do, and not in a like, oh, I don't want to like copy your style kind of way, but just like a, oh man, I don't know how you can, like, in our case, like I don't know how you do the detail, and like you're intimidated by sequential art. It's the only way I know how to do what I do, right? Like
Yeah, well, I guess for like detail hogs like myself, like the way I look at sequential art, I'm like, you mean I have to draw that character more than like one time? What? Like different angle? What?
yeah, yeah.
Maybe that's just because I'm so used to just like drawing one-off characters. Like I usually get questions about my art being like, is this based on somebody? Is this person from X-Men? Is this person? Like I when I draw, I'm like, I will create this person and then put them on a shelf. Like
Right.
I will footprints of them and I will be done with it. And so it's I guess that's why we all have kind of our specialties, right? Like you with comics, me with just these one-off crazy carvings and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's just, how do we get the junk out of our brains the best way,
For sure.
right? Man, yeah, speaking of like one-off characters, I feel like see, that's just another thing for me, right? It's just like I'm bad at doing one-off characters. Like it's one of those things of, I have so many friends who are, you know, amazing painters or like sculptors or illustrators, like yourself, who do just these really amazing single pieces that I find really interesting to look at. And then anytime that I try it myself, I'm just
Mhm.
like, this thing is boring. Like, I don't
Oh,
know. Like, even when it's like a pretty dynamic pose or whatever that I'm doing, it's still just, I don't know. There, for me, whatever it is, it just lacks a soul somehow.
no, I
And
get
I
it. I
don't,
think
yeah,
as
it's
inhumane as
amazing
it
to me.
sounds, yeah, as inhumane as it sounds, I think that's like why with my art, like I don't even sometimes I don't even think about the fact that I'm drawing a character. I don't see it like that. I see it as like a kind of wild composition of parts. And
Hmm.
it's like they don't have a soul. No. It's I think just seeing the whatever is the subject of the artwork as the art itself and not like anything apart from it. Maybe that's like what tricks my mind into being okay with like the sort of one-off thing. But yeah, it's interesting to get different perspective on that.
So, on the same subject, um, are you only, so you say you don't think of them as characters.
Mhm.
What are you trying to then represent in your work? Like, so they say a picture's worth 1,000 words, right? I have
Yeah.
friends whose paintings are like have political meanings or, personal meanings or whatever. Does your art have, like, do you intend there to be some sort of deeper philosophical meaning, or are you just like, oh yeah, it's cool to draw a wolf with like a half skull or half cyber face? I
I
didn't see
mean,
you
the
finish that
latter,
piece, so I'm not exactly sure what it turned
uh,
out to be.
yeah, no, I think the latter is actually pretty accurate. I draw just whatever I feel like drawing. A lot of people ask like, "Oh, what's the deeper meaning of this?" And like, obviously, I don't take offense to that question. It's just kind of more of like they're always surprised when I'm like, there's not really there's this is like in a way my art is kind of surface level. Like I mean, kind of, I guess, but um, I don't have stories for the subjects in my artwork. There is no purpose for it. It's not part of a narrative. I've thought of like a potential project where maybe like I guess multiple subjects exist in the same visual universe, but they're not meant like I'm never
Right.
thinking about how they interact with each other or things like that. It's kind of like
Okay.
they just are. And I think for me, um, it's art like the art that I create is kind of exhaust in a way. Like it's
Hmm.
me problem solving in my head. I don't really know how to interpret it, but and this is like the most metal thing like a person can say like of her background, but my mom is an English teacher and so much more eloquent than I am, and she has actually told me, so your art's like, she said it was emotional exorcism. I'm like, yeah. Thanks, Ma. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. And I remember her saying that to me when I was a teenager, and I was like, why does that? I'm like, that's one, that's brutal. Two, yeah, like I agree.
Hell yeah.
Thanks,
No, that's
Mom.
really cool. And also very, in my mind, would be very liberating and stress relieving if that was how my brain would work.
Oh man.
Because
Well,
I cannot divorce myself from story. Like,
oh yeah.
I if you have a chance and go back and listen to the first episode of Thought Balloons where I just talk about me and like my shit,
Hmm.
it is all about, like, as an adopted person, I never knew like what my life would have been like if I hadn't been adopted. And
Right.
so everything to me is narrative and story, because I've always questioned like what would have been, right? I
Right.
like
Yeah.
it's an intrinsic part of, which is why, I went to film school before I went to art school, and why I chose comics. Like, there is a narrative to everything I do, and the best way for me to do it is in 1,000 pictures that tell one story instead of one picture that says 1,000 words, right?
That makes
So
a
the
lot of
idea to just do surface level art, I probably would be happy doing one-off characters if I wasn't compelled into like,
you could make little
okay, now
trading
who
cards.
is this character and what do they want?
No, dude, you can make trading cards. Just like start small or something like that.
But see, for me, that would be like, okay, if I'm making trading cards, then like, who are these characters and what is the world that they encounter?
You see
And
like
what am
point
I
two.
putting on the trading card? Like, am I making a Magic the Gathering kind of game? Like, what is going like, what are their
Anymore.
stats? Is this baseball cards? And if they're baseball cards, what's the game that they're like?
I
I
can
just
imagine
so many questions in my mind all the time. Like it's insane in my brain sometimes.
where it just says intelligence. Eh.
Right?
Oh
But yeah,
man.
that's really cool, like to again to see like the counterpoint between like two different artists and why we're so different. But you know, that's really cool.
Thank you.
So keeping on this subject for a little bit, I do have another question about printmaking.
Oh
You
yeah, go
mentioned you
ahead.
make t-shirts, and
Uh,
I have seen as you know, hanging out with you in your streams and stuff, I've seen you design stuff in your sketchbooks and then turn that into a print or into a shirt or something. When you do that, is that something that you just like you drew it in your sketchbook and then thought, oh, that would be cool to put on a t-shirt? Or is it the other way around? You're like, I want to do a t-shirt, new t-shirt design. So then you sit down to specifically design a shirt.
yeah, it's a combination of both. If I'm up against, and this used to be the case with, remember when conventions happened?
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, right. This used to be the case with convention deadlines, but I'm very much motivated by kind of stress and fear, as much as
Mm-hmm.
I hate to admit it. So I am not a self-starter. I get things done because I kind of set boundaries around myself. And so if there's a convention coming up and I don't have a new t-shirt, I tell myself, well, you have no choice. You're going to have to finish that shirt, whatever the
Right.
design is. And so sometimes I look in my sketchbook for inspiration, but with like, for example, some of my most popular t-shirts are, there's a few. There's Neon, which is based on the Chinese New Year's monster. There's this like kind of Cerberus laser wolf thing. And like the
Mm-hmm.
Cerberus wolf, that came from like in Inktober. And I wasn't a fan of the design. Like I didn't look at that thing and think, yeah, I want to put it on a shirt. But then a convention was coming up. Oh man, I need a new shirt. What do I use? What do I use? I'm like, oh, people like wolves on t-shirts, I think. But without like how, having three Howl at the Moon, no judgment. And so I went with that one. And then the neon design was actually from, there's this kind of thing that's not Inktober, but it's called Creaturary.
Right.
And I did Creaturary, or attempted Creaturary one year. And that was one of the prompts, was to draw the New Year's Beast. And so I do, again, because of events like that, I do take from inspiration from like things already created, but it's hard sometimes to make a drawing and be like, and know from the beginning that it's going to be a t-shirt, because there's been several instances where I've tried to plan that far ahead and it just kind of falls apart once it's finished.
Right. That's cool. Very you seem to have a very organic process.
Yeah,
Um
sometimes I just try to plan everything out, and it seems like opinions change the longer you go on with it. So
mhm.
sometimes I draw now, and instead of just like trying to set an objective with a piece of art, I'm just like, we'll see. That's my phrase. We'll see. We'll see how it goes.
In those we'll see moments, do you ever just go straight ink to paper and just whatever happens happens, or are you always laying and plotting down like pencils and stuff like that?
It's usually the latter, because I really have trouble kind of settling on an idea. But once I feel like I've hooked onto something, I get really excited about it. When I'm sketching, and this is usually off stream, but if I'm in my comfort zone and I start sketching, like there's times where I just go free-handed, just because I think just to practice feeling familiar with not fearing the sketchbook
Right.
and things like that, and just kind of going forward with concepts almost recklessly can be really healthy. So um, I don't know. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, no, yeah, that's fine. It makes me wonder though, when you say I think the words you used were reckless abandon. Um when you sketch, what's your style of sketching? I know there's like a couple different. I'm a fan of mass gestures and scribble drawing when I'm doing sketches and like plotting out like ideas. Are you more contained in your sketching, or are you just like wild with your pencils and graphite and
Probably wild. I would say that my sketching style is not incredibly different from just how I draw in general. I think it's just kind of more that there's a the boundaries are better set, that it's like, hey, just don't spend more than like a day on this and you're good. It's sort of how I see the sketchbook. Sometimes even shorter than that. So it's pretty much doing the same thing I always do, but with more, I wouldn't even say more constraint. It's like, that's the point of a sketchbook. It's unconstrained, but
Yeah.
just making sure that the ideas can stay within a couple pages or less, I think.
Do you thumbnail at all, or you just like draw, and if you don't like that thing, you move on to a new page?
I do occasionally thumbnail, but I have found it makes no difference in the kind of art that I actually end up finishing. And
Hmm.
so I think that it's a great tool that I would recommend to other artists, honestly. But for me, it just isn't so indispensable that it has to be a part of every single thing that I make.
And see, and that's where we meet in a Venn diagram. Because I
Hey,
will, I will thumbnail, but I don't always thumbnail. I think I
mhm,
thumbnail more when it's something that I'm not used to drawing, or if I have a very, very specific goal in mind that I need to
yeah.
iterate on multiple
I,
times.
I find when I'm drawing more sci-fi subjects where there's a lot of emphasis on like the profile and how the hardware is kind of supposed to look on paper. You know, you kind of want it to have, if you're drawing like a mech, like sort of imposing silhouette or things like that. I might go and do the thumbnails, but typically, or like for example, this also makes sense with you being a comic artist. If I'm plotting
Mhm.
out like a scene to happen on paper, but I don't
Right.
do too many scenes. I think my art is usually typical. It's typically like a person or some kind of like animal or amalgam being right in the dead center of the page with crap flying around it. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah. Yeah, that's funny, but like, and this is really bad. Any comic book artists out there who are listening to me, don't do what I do.
Don't
I
judge.
kind of don't thumbnail my pages really. I
Okay.
do, but I don't like iterate on them the way like I do for other things. So like right now I'm working on a lot of art for an RPG show that I'm going to be doing hopefully over the summer if I can finish the art by then. It's going to be, instead of using like maps and tokens to play D&D like our current D&D show is, um the show I'm going to do is all going to be what we call theater of the mind,
Mhm.
and no tokens, no grids or anything. It's just like, hey, am I close enough to hit that guy? And I'll be like, yeah, you are. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
um but because it's a visual thing that we're streaming on Twitch, I want to have like scenes, right? Like I want to have like still pictures, like illustrated images of like where the characters are so that everyone can kind of get an idea for the feel of the world.
Yeah.
And it's a sci-fi thing. It's like pulp 50s kind of retro futurism. Atom punk, I think, is like another term for it. But
Okay.
like, I'm not a sci-fi artist. I'm a like I feel much more comfortable doing organic like scenes. Like I would
Mhm.
rather, I'd rather not draw backgrounds at all ever and only just draw characters because that's what I really like doing. But I much prefer doing a like medieval style house that I don't have to worry about perfectly straight lines and stuff, and I can be messy with
Yeah.
it, versus like a city, like a modern city or a futuristic city where everything's crisp and clean and precise and machine made. Because it's just so much. I don't. My brain doesn't work that way. But like,
Yeah.
so I have to design I had to design a spaceship, the titular spaceship Zero, for this thing that we're doing. And I drew like 20 versions of ships, like 20 different
Okay.
ships, before ending up going with like the third one that I drew. But like, I
Yeah, because that can be
designed all these
relatable.
different ships,
Yeah.
just because I wasn't, I didn't know what I wanted. I had like an idea, like I wanted it to feel like it was sort of from the 50s, early 60s, and that kind of thing.
Mhm.
But just as a whole, like, I went through a lot of different designs, and it's something where like I was drawing the first actual scene today that I can do before I know who my players are and what their characters are going to be, is the actual first big image for the show is going to be like a group shot of the crew of the ship.
Mhm.
But the first picture I was actually drawing is seeing like the ship in orbit around Earth, and I had to draw another ship that is like a refueling tow ship kind of whatever. And I was just like, man, I gotta design another ship. And I was like, no, I don't. I'm gonna just use one of those 20 things I didn't use. And I
Yeah,
just
having a
grabbed one,
library can be good.
you know. So like sometimes I'm glad that I like iterate on ideas, but then like when I'm doing a comic page, I kind of just I don't know, I kind of just go by instinct when I'm doing my thumbnails. And like my thumbnails are less about there are times when I'm like I have an idea and I'm like, "Oh, okay, yeah, that really doesn't work the way I thought it would." Um but the thumbnailing stage with comics for me is less about, oh, do I need like a tall rectangle here versus a wide panel?
Mm,
It's less about puzzling those pieces together and like changing them and stuff. And it's more about plotting it out, making sure I have enough room for word balloons, that kind of thing. And
of course.
then do I need to like, oh, okay, maybe this page doesn't work, but it's not necessarily like, do I need to rearrange the shapes of the panels? It's more like, oh, I need to add a panel. How do I add a
Yeah.
panel, right? That's usually how like I iterate on it. But I know comic artists who are like, yeah, tall, skinny rectangle in the top left corner, two squares right next to it, then separate the page by one long, skinny, wide panel, and then two vertical panels at the bottom. And then they look at it and they're like, I don't like that. And they're like, okay, skinny, wide panel at the top. And then they like
It's art of itself.
reorder the whole thing. Like, I don't really do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so
um,
much thinking to do for that.
yeah, it is. But what I actually really, really like that phase of comics.
Rock on.
Because I like the puzzle, and it's a fun challenge to do a jigsaw puzzle while you're creating the jigsaw pieces.
Mhm.
It is it's a weird sort of mental exercise, but I think well, like I said, I went to film school, and I where I was realized that I wanted to do comics was in the course that we had about storyboarding. And I was like, man, this is fun. I really like drawing. I forgot how much I like drawing because, I didn't like once I left high school, I didn't really draw anymore.
Mhm.
And I was just like, man, I forgot how much I like drawing. This is fun. And then I was like, but it sucks having to draw in the same rectangle every single time.
Yeah, that
Because
must be true.
yeah, for a storyboard, you're drawing for a screen, and the screen doesn't change aspect ratios in the middle of a movie. It's the same rectangle every single shot, right?
Yeah.
And then it was just when I learned, like when I figured out I wanted to do comics, it was like, oh, this is really fun. It's like storyboarding, but I get to play with the like what's going on. If I want a really low shot and get the whole character in there, I don't need to have empty space on either side of them. I can just make a skinny panel and stick them in the pit.
Yeah.
Um, but anyway, I think we have covered a lot of ground here, and we should probably head to our ad break here. Um, we've covered a lot of ground about doing actual art, and we will talk more about this stuff when we return. Everybody listening, enjoy a couple of ads. Do you want to class up your gaming? Are you sick of card tables and cheap plastic sleeves for your character sheets? Do you like real wood and are convinced magnets are the only magic we have left in our current age of science? Then head over to legendcraft.ca to spruce up your tabletop gaming setup. They offer felt top gaming tables with add-ons like cup holders, tablet holders, dice trays, roll boxes, and more. Newly released in January 2021 is their Magna Tracker system. With versions for both health and spell tracking, these sleek and stylish tracking boards come with magnetized tracking pips that allow you to slide them back and forth along clean-cut channels, making tracking your health and spell slots easy to use and read, all without the constant erasing and writing on your character sheet. And did I mention that both the Magna Trackers and the tables are customizable and personalizable? That's right. Your table and or Magna Tracker will be one of a kind when you order at Legendcraft. Legendcraft is partnering with me to offer you a 5% discount on your orders at legendcraft.ca. That's right, you can get a 5% discount when you enter the code F_ART at checkout. That's F_art. Go to legendcraft.ca. That's legendcraft.ca with discount code F_art for 5% off. Legendcraft.ca. Order today. If you like this podcast and would like to support the show, head over to patreon.com/Folsham_art. With as little as $1 per month, you not only support Thought Balloons and get to submit questions to be answered by myself and the guest host, but you will also have access to my webcomic 3 to 4 weeks before the release to the public and my weekly update blog. At higher tiers, you'll gain access to full issues and short story comics, and you can even see progress and add input to projects I'm working on. That's patreon.com/FOULSHAM_ART to support Thought Balloons today. Welcome back from the break for part 2 of Thought Balloons with guest Cryomera. Welcome back, Cryo.
Thank you.
So in the first half of the show, we talked printmaking, art in general, our process, just things, how we think about art in general. We covered a lot of topics. There are still a couple things based in the actual production of art that I want to ask you before maybe getting into a bigger subject to take us right through to the end of the segment here. But something that, again, that escapes me, it touched on it a little bit, but I want to hear your views and what interests you about it. Machinery, cyberpunk, all of that kind of mechanical nonsense. What is it that like really interests you about that kind of stuff and draws you to create that kind of artwork?
You know, that's a funny thing. And I feel like a lot of my art recently has kind of been more cyborg on the side of mech as opposed to like actual mecha. But I've never had somebody ask me why I was interested in the sci-fi aspect. It's usually people ask me, why are you interested in just the type of art you do in general? So that actually kind of caught me off guard in a good way.
Nice.
But I think a little bit had to do with my interests growing up. I didn't watch a lot of mech anime, for example, such as Gundam and things like that. But I grew up with things like Evangelion and Big O, which tends to be forgotten. And I was at a very early age, influenced by anime. And even back before nobody really knew what to call it, we were just like Japanime. Like I think that makes sense. You know, the ones with they have the glistening eyes. Yeah, that like we like that.
One with the glistening eyes.
And
Yeah,
the
triangle noses and the pointy chins.
Exactly. Yeah. And so things from Toonami especially really captured my interest, but I didn't really know how to show it. And then anytime I tried to draw a robot, I was like, well, this is crap. I'm gonna put that in the trash bin and just forget about it. And even still, it doesn't populate most of my artwork. It's usually kind of hidden in the sketchbooks whenever I do things like that. But it always, I think the sci-fi related kind of cybernetic part does peek in and out with some of my most recent pieces. That was not supposed to rhyme. Anyway, I was also, what turned into an interest in anime also developed into an interest in cyberpunk. And so then I was reading manga like Blame. I was really into Appleseed by Shiro Masamune, who also made Ghost in the Shell, and didn't actually read Ghost in the Shell. I was more of a fan of his other work. And so I think naturally it was just this really interesting genre that it felt like it already made its presence, but it wasn't very well known at the time that I got interested in it. I think it's like, it wasn't super unknown, it wasn't super well known. And now we see it everywhere with even the video game named Cyberpunk. And you know, I actually think that's kind of cool. Like, I'm not it's really cool to see what people do with the genre nowadays, that we have all this technology to keep up with it. But anyway, sorry, going back, it's always enraptured me, I guess. Just, it was so different from everything else that I was into at the time. I kind of went through, you know, the quote unquote phase where I was really into alternative and dark stuff. And then Cyberpunk just kind of felt like a companion to the things I already liked.
That's cool. So obviously there's like an aesthetic interest to it. But you seem to like really have gotten into like the genre itself, and the stories that are told. I mean, you rattled off more names than I could.
Okay, yeah.
Like I am yeah, because like I'm not into cyberpunk really. Like I dig the aesthetic, but it's not a genre that I'm like super interested in. Are you do you enjoy the actual like stories in the genre? Are you like into the dystopian kind of like corporatocracy that seems to be pervasive in a lot of cyberpunk?
At first I would say no, because with most media, I enjoy it most when I can create it. I hate to admit that sometimes, but like, I would rather draw my own monsters than read a book about monsters. Like, I also just, and I am not proud of this fact at all, I just straight up like don't read books. I don't indulge in comic books as much as I used to. It's just, to me, so much more it's so much nicer just to feel like I can kind of create my own little world. And so I'm not sure if I'd necessarily enjoy those genres, but maybe it has a little bit of a relatability factor, because like, I did work in corporate graphic design for several years of my life, and I like, here's the thing, I don't care if other people find themselves flourishing in that environment, but I found out that just corporate work really, they warn you about this like when you're a teenager and you don't understand, but it to me was so soul sucking. It was like, oh crap, they're right. And so maybe to an extent, whether I notice it or not, I do find myself kind of nodding along with that. Not like just in a joking way, but maybe that's also part of my like, just how do I say this? Unexplained interest in it. I don't know. Just being like, yeah, it's the man, and we got fear the man. You need to take down the man.
Yeah, I dig that. For me, it's, you know, because I fear that we're going that way in real life, it's I seek escapism elsewhere.
Yeah.
And but
that makes sense.
yeah, it's always interesting to like see why people are like into cyberpunk. You know, I
Yeah, and
talked
it's
to
not,
Ethan about it in another podcast, and for him it's almost entirely aesthetic based, like which I thought
I
was
would
pretty
say the same
interesting.
for me. I think there's like a subconscious interest just because some corporate stuff really makes me like want to gouge my eyes out. But I'm also saying that as I'm talking to you on a MacBook Pro. So
Fair enough.
yeah, let's just go back to saying it's like more of an aesthetic thing, possibly.
Real quick question. Have you invested in GameStop?
Oh my gosh. No, but so that's the funny thing is like, I do invest my money in, like I have for years, in very, very conservative like areas, but I have actually just been watching the whole GameStop thing with like, yeah, go.
Right.
So it's like I keep telling my friends, I'm like, all right, so what director is going to make a movie about this in 5 to 10 years? Like, just name one. Just name one.
I don't
It's
know the
really
director, but I don't know the director yet, but MGM has purchased the story rights from Deep Fucking Value because he's gonna write a novel
no
about
way
it.
they have.
Yeah, already. It's like it's only week 2 of the thing going on. For people who are listening to this like far into the future, we're recording this on February 1st,
Mhm.
2021. It's only been going right now for like a week and a half, 2 weeks. And yeah, they've already MGM has already bought the movie rights to a book that Deep Fucking Value hasn't even written yet. That's how crazy
So like the dude is
this
already
thing
making bank.
is.
Well, it's like it's just really, or I mean, I was pretty keen on, I didn't participate in them, but like everybody like around our age group remembers the Occupy Wall Street movement that happened kind of
Yeah.
in the 2010s, and it's like not a lot came of that, and it was
Yep.
upsetting. And now we're watching things unfold before our very eyes, and like just not only that, all the excitement surrounding it, and it's just like it's crazy to witness this. And I mean, it's even also like, damn it, I was already spending too much time on Reddit. Now you guys have got me like, you guys have me by this like stranglehold. So I am checking it, being like, all right, what's new here? Just like looking at their little ape and diamond emojis. Like, I'm like, I'm not even participating in this. I'm just this like eager observer of what's going on. But yeah, that stuff is crazy.
Diamond hands, baby.
Moon.
Yeah, it's wild. I like last week I almost bought into AMC, but I couldn't remember the password to my online like banking, like to link it to any kind of selling app.
It's okay. I was thinking of it too.
Um
Plus I miss movie theaters, so that also hit like a really soft spot in my heart. But
yeah. Well, like that's the like see that's the also the other thing is like I don't think AMC is gonna like take off like GameStop or anything.
mhm.
Right now, AMC might be poised to do well post pandemic once theaters are like fully up and running again, because I know that they've been putting like money and stuff into like renovating theaters and like cleaning them up where
Right.
like other theaters haven't been doing that.
They got
So
fancy.
they
Like
might
what?
be like, you know what I mean? Like they
Yeah.
may be the choice place to go for like a good experience back to the movies. So I kind of want to buy it, but like I also currently only have like $185 in my bank account. So like I kind of don't
Yeah, I get
want to like spend all my money on some stocks, you know?
that. No,
But
totally
like
understandable.
but yeah, it's funny. But anyway, to get off of silly meme business, I know that something you had mentioned in our talk before the podcast, you had mentioned that you've taken an interest in talking about the business side of art. Um
Oh yes.
what what are your thoughts on doing business as an artist, making this your career? um Advice, like what are just sort of general thoughts to like shift gears into the business side of things?
For sure. Also very surface levelly, but I mean, truth be told, I mean, Twitch only happened because I was able to try and give it a shot, and giving it a shot only happened because I got laid off from a very stable job that I had in the past. And so
Mhm.
in a way, like I'm kind of still starry-eyed like about the whole fact that this is happening. To kind of
Right.
give it insight, I worked as a graphic designer for several years. I think I mentioned that a little bit before. And
Mm.
it's something that I got a degree in. People ask like if I like got any sort of art education, and I'm like, well, graphic design sort of kind of maybe like it's related to art, but more like a distant cousin, I would say. And I think it
Yeah.
also, you can look at my work and kind of see like bold elements and placement, maybe that I might have had some education in that, I suppose. Not a brag, by the way, just what I've like heard.
Yeah.
And so I made pretty good money doing graphic design and got to live in Seattle, which is a pretty expensive city, but I was able to make it work through just like things like having roommates and being careful with my money.
Yeah.
But it definitely kind of tore me from the inside out after a while. It was not what I wanted to spend my creative efforts doing, making ads for car companies pretty much. And I'm glad that I had the experience. I would never change a single thing about it, but I'm so much happier to be doing this. And the only reason I'm doing this is because I got laid off from that job, because the company had to downsize like crazy. And that kind of caused this ripple effect, which allowed me to, I reached the decision where I thought, okay, so I could either be looking for another job trying to make the same amount of money I used to, or because I was already trying to put like a little bit of savings in the back, I was like, I could try out this art thing. And then the worst thing that happens is I found out it's not for me and I kind of re-enter the workforce. And I say
Yeah.
worst thing that happens, but that would have probably still been kind of soul crushing. And so I decided to kind of give myself these little increment, like kind of 9-month milestones, like, okay, let's see where I'm at. And it was tough for the first year, like it would be for anybody. You're still taking money out of savings and still being like, yeah, I made this big amount at this one event. And then the huge bills just smack you straight in the face.
Right.
But now I am approaching 2021 would be my third year of doing this. I still feel like
Nice.
another noob trying to figure out like just navigate my area. But I've also realized that just being an adult means feeling like noob every day. So I'm just gonna have to get used to that feeling. But it's been a pretty incredible ride, and I can't believe that it led me to start doing Twitch, and that's how this interview is happening at all. And so I know that's not really a business side, more of just a storybook side, but
Yeah.
it's all pretty crazy.
And it's you mentioned how like being an adult is just feeling like you're lost every day, and
Take it till you make it.
it's so weird to be getting to the age at which our parents were like raising us, and
Hmm.
realizing that they were probably just as lost and making it up one day at a time as we are
For
now.
sure.
It's like, oh, okay, yeah, they had no idea what they were doing.
Yeah, and it's a little bit nice because then if I like, I feel I was so embarrassed to do this in my early 20s. Like if my car was making a weird noise, it's like I'd try to use Google Foo and find like the automotive version of like WebMD to tell me it's probably going to explode in 5 days. But now I'm just like, now that I've actually come to terms that I don't know what I'm doing and nobody does, I'll just be like, Mom, hey, hope you're having a good Sunday. All right, so this is the car is making the noise. And I was like so ashamed of doing that when I was in my early 20s, and now I'm just making all these stupid calls and stuff like that. And so it is a little bit, like you said, weird to think that, wait, people were already raising families at this age. That's crazy. But yeah, definitely a weird thought.
Yeah,
And even like,
it's
but I think
weird.
artists, with us being emotional creatures too, I think I don't feel like I'm the only one acknowledging that either. We're all just I think, and also like art is a confusing career. Like it's so hard
True.
to know what to expect and to know what like expenses are gonna stop by, and maybe this new piece of equipment you found is actually going to be a game changer for you in terms of like productivity. And so I feel like it's even more amplified when you're in a creative career and you're trying to run it by yourself.
Yeah, yeah. um what are some of the strategies or practices that you do business wise that you think have led to some amount of success? Maybe not entire all of your success,
Right.
but like what are a few like key things that you feel are like, yeah, that actually like moves some weight.
Honestly, and I think in a way, COVID has, by keeping all artists inside and kind of forcing us on platforms like Twitch and to kind of find resources on internet has helped us. But let's assume we're talking about like a post-COVID world.
Mhm.
Fingers crossed. I really do think going to, like, if we're just talking about artists specifically, going to
Yeah.
art shows or events, or like nobody likes to use the word networking. I don't either. But if there's like, for example, you're more interested in comic book creation than I am, like if there's a local event or drink and draw where you can meet other people that are in the same territory as you, not only can that make a fun opportunity, a really awesome time to connect with people like-minded than you, but some folks have those cool connections. Also, part of the reason I'm on Twitch is because, and again, the going around to just the fact that you should just put yourself out there at some of these events. I wouldn't have done Twitch if not for people stopping by my booth and saying, hey, we like your art. We're artists on Twitch. You should totally join Twitch. I'm like, that's silly, but nice to meet you. You're cool. And now I'm like, oh crap, like I'm actually on Twitch. And they totally they didn't know it at the time, but it's like, that was the first domino to fall so like, again, there's just so many good things about, as nerve-wracking as it is, trust me, I've been there. I think one of the best things that helped me marketing wise, again, was just putting my art out where it's like palpable for people. Like they can go up and see the texture of the t-shirts. I even have like some of my blocks out so people can like look at the block and see what it was printed from, to be able to see your art in person, engage with the artist outside of just Twitch. And that, like, obviously, again, that's not possible right now, but those events helped me so much. And that, like, now that I'm on Twitch and occasionally a person will be like, oh, hey, I remember this art at a certain event. And hey, I showed it to this other person which starts another connection. And, like opportunities like Twitch that wouldn't have been possible if I didn't meet these people to tell me to my face, hey, you should try this out. It's like, yeah, I'm kind of going in circles a little bit with this, but really going out there in the real world and putting your art out once this COVID nonsense is over, that there have been so many opportunities that I may have missed out on if I didn't go to some of these events and save up for them.
Now, when you go to those events and you're showing things at like tables and stuff, right?
Yeah.
How long did it take for you to start? Like, I don't want to say turning a profit, but like, how many shows did it take for you to like actually start gaining attention? Was that something that just sort of started happening right away?
Yeah, it kind of depends on like the region of your show. If you go 2 years in a row, like people will remember you the second year, most likely, if you got something semi-unique to show off. It's also cool because you'll start to meet other artists that recognize you at multiple shows, and they can kind of also help you with like what you're trying to accomplish and how to get into like other shows and things like that. So I feel like even when I first started, I think my first con ever was Rose City Comic Con 2018. And by 2019, there were so many artists I already knew and a few vendors that had remembered me and wanted to buy updated prints, that it probably took, I'd say half a year to a year to start to feel like some people were stopping by that was like, oh yeah, I've seen this somewhere. I don't know where, but there's something about this that catches my eye. And that was the coolest feeling in the world.
Nice. Yeah, I've done a couple of like comic shows and things, but I don't know if it's just, it's really difficult to like gain attention at the beginning,
For sure.
Also like,
Sometimes you have to resort to silly tactics to get seen. I printed out this neon pink roll-up banner with a robot on it and became known as like the pink robot banner person. And so if people want to check out the booth and like tell a friend about it, it's like, oh yeah, the one with the pink banner. It's like, you gotta like,
right.
sometimes like weird ideas just work. But anyway, continue.
I was just gonna say, like, sometimes it's like you wonder if it's poor placement or or vice versa, good placement that like gets you like seen and stuff, or
Poor placement
in
can
your
definitely
case, like I haven't seen like art like yours anywhere else, so I think you have that going for you, whereas like, and maybe this is just self-deprecating or like, imposter
better not
syndrome
do it.
talking, but
Don't do
like
it. Don't boldly go.
I feel like I don't really put out a unique product. I just draw a fantasy adventure comic, and there's like, with the explosion of the popularity of D&D and stuff, like they're all over the place, right? So I don't
mean, you
know,
could
like
know that some of the popular comics are still not super unique, but engaging enough that people stick with them. But it's like I've even seen
But you need like
More
that thing
just,
to like draw people in, right?
yeah, I mean, I've even seen some comic book artists get rid of their booth table in general and have their display in a way that so people can walk up and have to look at it. Like they're not like kind of quarantined behind a booth where it's like there's the creator, there's the booth, there's the people. Like they can just like actually engage with the artwork and talk very casually to the person running it if they can. So it's like sometimes with conventions, like some people don't have to do anything, and others will just flock to them. But
Mm-hmm.
like sometimes it does require like this extra tactic. It's so many artists not really competing against each other, but at least like trying to fight the noise at the same time. So I totally understand the struggle though. It's like I
I
guess for
think,
me, I was just like
like
pink, yes, pink. Like I don't know.
yeah, I like, I've done banners, but like mine were always very understated because I'm like a very understated kind of person.
Yeah.
It never even occurred to me for like marketing purposes to like do anything weird or wild. Um, and then like I would like grab like try and grab people's attention as they're like walking by and stuff, but
Right.
like I don't know. It's also like 75% of the shows that I've been at, they put me in the vendor section. They don't put me in artist alley.
Wait, what? People
Yeah.
pay more for the vendor section usually. Like they
They
were just
put
like, yeah.
there's like a whole section where, at least because the smaller shows, because I haven't like gone to like anything like Philly or like Pittsburgh or anything like that, or even like New York Comic Con, obviously, but
Yeah.
like
Oh, New York Comic Con sounds like static. I don't know. I don't,
yeah,
I'm not dying to go there anytime soon.
but like yeah, I don't know, it's weird. Like I always get like stuck over with like people that are selling like Beanie Babies and
Oh,
like
honey, no.
fucking like like actual comic book stores that like get a table to sell like overstock books and stuff like that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have definitely, due to the person I was sharing a booth with and she let me take over. I had one show where I was like the weird gothic like blot surrounded by a ton of kawaii, like similar things that you described. And I remember people would line up to the kawaii stuff like so in this huge crowd that it would block my booth from the
Hmm.
inside out. And I was just like, or an outside in. And I was just like, no, what's happening? I feel like we always have, that's the thing with shows too. It's like one show is not going to like determine your future, obviously, but we always have that one that's just like a weird funk. And it just sucks that it's that way, but it happens to even the most successful artists. There'll just be like that one weird instance where you feel like you're kind of yelling and nobody's hearing.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely like a strange world
Mm-hmm.
uh to like live in, you
For
know
sure.
um but like but so that's like post COVID. What have you been doing other than like streaming? Like do you like run Patreon, or do you like try and like do giveaways for like of like shirts
Yeah.
to like try and boost like other sales or whatever? Like have you done like discounts and stuff on your store? Like
For sure. I I I need to deactivate my Patreon account because
ooh.
I totally forgot it exists and there's like nobody on it. So I got to get to that right now. No, but I was actually going to say, like shows can really help, but you have to keep up afterward because like those are the huge pockets where tons of people are looking at your stuff all at once where they never would have otherwise found it. And
Mhm.
so it's like you kind of got to keep the momentum going as best as you can. And social media, like I've been a little bit embarrassed about how much I've ranted about it on my stream, but I'm a kind of person that I get excited if I can figure out something. And then as soon as that changes, where I have to reevaluate the formula, I get really frustrated. That's not even just with social media, that's life in general. I
Right.
like feeling that I can like this is like also why I didn't like I'm not a programmer and didn't take like things like web design is I just want to know it and feel like I know it forever.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so like pen and ink, that's not going to change very much. So with social media, another thing with I guess I have no experience marketing you guys. I'm just playing it by ear. I social media is favoring videos right now. And I have had some folks recommend that I create a YouTube page to put my streams on. I'm like, I'd rather my face be on Twitch, nowhere else, to be honest.
Right.
But honestly, with like social media platforms like TikTok, with Instagram trying to add like 5 different video options, with like just short videos being doing well on Twitter and stuff like that. Like videos are in right now, like short, sweet, to the point. And so I've never found myself enjoying video editing, but it's also one of those things that when I initiate it, because I know I want to get a piece of artwork out there and I want people to see the process, it sort of reveals the magic for them, and they get really engaged with that kind of stuff. And so people might like to see kind of how you figure out the layers of panels or things like that. And also, because of my kind of unique way of making t-shirts, where I sometimes carve the designs out of a hunk of wood and press them, like I can use that to my advantage to not only show people the process of it so that they can feel like if they want to buy it, they're getting something unique. But then people have this habit that if you do something like that, a person might say, "Hey, nice shirt." And then they'll respond, "Thanks, this was actually carved by the artist who made it." And so it's kind of like it's like this crazy wave of momentum when you show the world a little bit of your process that way. It's like people that also get like entranced by that want to talk about why they were. And so like they might be like, look at that cool blending mode that they applied that like changed the entire feel of the picture, or like look at how they set this layout and do this stuff. And nobody has to be like a Da Vinci to make a cool video. But I mean, I found that is actually revealing my process a little bit, has really helped me. And it's also helped me in a sense that I can help people distinguish the difference between what is screen printing, what is block printing, why is what I do a little bit different than the t-shirts you normally find. And so that's been cool. Kind of on my radar recently.
Yeah, it's fun. It's like you mentioned like TikTok, and like that is a
yes, I did.
Like even just short form content, it's funny. Like I kind of equate in my brain short form video to one-off drawings. It's like something where it's just like I have too much to say in 15. Like you can't say it in 15 seconds. Like
right.
even the ads that I've recorded, and I'm like, yeah, that one was like real quick and tight. It's like, and then I like go to like put it, like render it out and stuff so that I can just drop it into various things. And I'm like, wait, that was 40 seconds of me talking. What?
Oh, I've been
How
there.
did that happen? What is going on? Like,
yeah.
I was like, I'm not a brief person. I'm not prone to brevity in any amount.
Technically, neither am I. But for you, it's the story. For me, it's the process, kind of. We're sort of alike in that. And it's like maybe for you, it's like even just kind of revealing panel by panel or something like that. Like not trying to give unsolicited advice here at all. But I mean, we both have ways of just kind of being way too long and drawn out in certain things, but we might be able to use that to our advantage to sort of like close in on a really mysterious process for a lot of people who aren't creatives,
Yeah, like I've started like doing videos on YouTube where like the ones that are being released on Tuesdays and Thursdays right now are I've done the inking process of a Justice League picture that I did, and then once I like show the inking process of all the different characters, I just did like a full like 20-minute or something version of the whole thing from front to start, or from front to back. But like I get, that's like something where like, I guess you would like the kind of paneling idea, but like, breaking up like a larger thing into like smaller segments. But even still, like those time lapses are like 2 to 3 minutes. They're not like what can you do in 15 seconds on a TikTok with art? Like it's so like what?
Time lapse, speed up.
Well, those were like 2 to 3 minute time lapses, and it's like you barely like get any visual like information out of like how that's
separated
being
into
done.
components. I don't know.
No, it's not like a question that I like I'm like really seeking like an actual like concrete answer for it. It's more of a
Gotcha.
hypothetical, but like I feel like, for something that you would do, like even on a time lapse for like 15 seconds, you'd get like what, four like little chisels of a wood block cut, and that's it.
I know,
Like,
right? Like that's it, folks. That's the show. Move along.
yeah, it's us. Just it's a world that like escapes me, I guess, like
Yeah, no, I
it's
get
for
you.
the
I mean,
youths.
hey,
It's for I'm an
I'm
old
still trying to
man and
figure out
it's
all this
for the
stuff.
youths. I'm a
Damn
just
kids, get off my lawn.
I'm a just suck on my caramels and I'm gonna pull my pants up to my nipples and yell at people to get off my lawn. That's how
Yeah,
I
they're
feel
kind of
most
into that.
days.
Not anymore. Just got to hype these up a little bit more, and everything will be all right.
Yeah, just gotta. Oof. My back hurts. My joints hurt when I get up in the morning. I'm old. I don't know what TikTok does.
I like to call it the talk ticks, just to sound like I don't know what I'm talking about because I'm embarrassed that I know what I'm talking about. Hey,
Most of the time, people mention it. I'm like, isn't that a breath mint?
that is actually how I'm going to respond, and I'm totally going to copy that.
You're talking about them Tic Tacs? Yeah, I used to eat Tic Tacs.
Yeah, but it's a mate again, but just going back, it's still, if you were able to kind of manage a smaller time frame or even 30 seconds, it can be incredible, like how, again, reveal, like people can be really mystified by revealing just little bits and pieces of the process.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I need, like me personally, what I would need to do is, I guess, go to TikTok and like actually see what other artists are doing there,
Hmm.
especially like ones that are like relatively successful, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's different with each person, and TikTok, like all social media platforms, will kind of have its own weird personality. But
Yeah.
I do think, like, based on what I've seen in the printmaking and ink side, it's kind of similar in how we view the art section of Twitch, where there just feels like there's a little bit more humanity in the creative side of things because they're not focused on trying to be a character as much as they're just trying to get you to see the art. And that's
Yeah.
always cool in my book.
So yeah, that's a vibe I can mess with for sure.
Yeah, and even with Twitch, like when people think of Twitch that aren't part of our community, they're usually thinking of like some gamer with really fluffy hair, probably like yelling at
Mhm.
a screen or something like that, which is fine. Sometimes I consume that entertainment. Sometimes. But like it was always a shock to me when I saw the art side of Twitch that I was like, how are these people so chill and nice? And I don't get it. Like, why is this part of the internet just so damn sweet? And I don't know if I'd say that about the art side of TikTok, because I only have started uploading videos. I don't browse it in my free time, to be honest. I just upload videos. But
Hmm.
again, there kind of seems to be less of a, I guess, look at me aspect, as much as it's just fun to see what people create.
That's cool. Yeah, I like that. I'll have to look into that kind of stuff. For me, it's always just been like analytics and fucking like, is this time of day right? Were these hashtags correct?
That
And I
part
don't
can
know. I
definitely
never
be a
really.
headache. No lie.
And no matter what I do, it never seems to like really make a difference. You're always
Mhm.
fighting the algorithm, and I
It's
just,
deep in
it's like
itself,
I don't know
for
what to
sure.
do. My
Mhm.
and I guess at the end of the day, like I take some solace in the fact that like I'm not really trying to make it on social media as like an indie artist.
For
I'm
sure.
hoping that, post COVID and cons come back, like I can take my portfolio and maybe get work like doing comics for a publisher, and then I get paid a page rate and I don't really have to worry so much about like,
Like
you
honestly,
know.
if it could be like that, that would probably save you so much stress because like I'm kind of sort of out here hanging out by myself. And so social media is kind of like another game to play on top of like what I already have lined up. And like
Right.
I won't lie, like some of it can be gratifying, but other times it does feel very surface level. And so if you can manage to do what you love and like, yeah, it's so good to have some sort of presence or a portfolio out there, but if you don't need to rely on, yes, I'm about to say it, clout or anything like that, which I feel like you only rely on that if you're even using that word regularly, to be honest,
Yeah.
then I mean that's great, you know. I think for me, it's like there's just kind of always this feeling of needing to make sure that it's like I don't want to make it a vanity project at all. Just making sure that my art exists somewhere is part of the biggest concern.
Yeah, and you know, it's funny because like you said that you actually want to get rid of your Patreon, and I'm actually thinking of like going all in on Patreon.
Do it.
Like, you know, it's funny, like, so for those of you who are listening to this, we're recording these I'm recording a lot of these interviews in a batch before I release like a lot of the interviews. Right now, as of this recording, um the first episode is up and people have like listened to it, but none of the interviews that I've done or none of the like conversations I've had with people are up on the internet yet. But if you've listened to this episode this far, you've probably heard the ad about my Patreon and how if you're subscribed at $1 you can like submit questions and stuff. So we don't have questions to answer quite yet because obviously that part of this hasn't happened yet, but
Baby steps.
you know, it's one of these things of like, you know, on Twitch, it's really nice to get the subscriptions and all that stuff. But part of me, I'm just like, you know, guys, that I have a Patreon and at $5 a month, instead of getting like a couple emotes that you can use, which I could totally put on Franker Z or, you know, better TTV like emotes for free, like $5 on my Patreon could get you a, you know, one comic book a month for like
Yo.
3 months, and then 2 short stories for the months after that, and then you know, an RPG adventure after that. And if you subscribe to higher tiers than that, like you can help me like actually write scenes in the book or like invent characters to like put, you know, there's so much more benefit in the Patreon for this, you know, even the same price that you would get on Twitch. It's just like part of me just is like, maybe I should just cancel my affiliate and just tell everybody to go to Patreon.
If that ends up working for you, I mean, hey, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's one of these things, and you know, it's like you said, like in the before the show, and like why you brought up like the business at all. It's something like we don't really talk about out in the open, and
We don't.
you know, it's, I think it's important for like, you know, I feel like this podcast, because I'm an artist and I'm interviewing a lot of artists on this podcast, a lot of artists are probably going to listen to this podcast, you know, and I think
For
a lot
sure.
of like beginning artists or like a lot of indie artists who haven't really made a break yet will probably hear this stuff, and you know, it may be comforting for them to know that like it's a grind. You know, it's fucking
Yeah.
grind, it's hard.
There are really great rewards that come with it, but it's like in a way it kind of turns little trivial things like social media accounts into part of your job. It's like would
Mhm.
you it's kind of like you gotta have a trade-off a little bit. Like sometimes I really don't enjoy picking apart the algorithm. I don't know a lot of people that do, but I'd rather be doing this than sitting in a cubicle.
Yeah,
So it's always like that trade-off to consider.
right, right. Yeah, I mean, I feel the exact same way, you know. I think I mentioned in one of the other podcasts, like when I was a kid, when people would ask me what I wanted to do for a living, I'd tell them I wanted to be homeless. And that's not even a joke. Like, I'm legit. I was just like, yeah, I'll just live over a heating grate, and you know, I'll have a spare cardboard box so my mom can come visit me.
I mean, van living or van dwelling, it's starting to get popular. That could
Yeah,
be a
you
compromise.
know,
It's pretty
see,
cool. I'm not gonna lie.
that wasn't even on my radar back in, you know, 1994. But like, Yeah, and then like after people told me I couldn't be homeless, like I was like, I'll be a Franciscan monk then. And they're like, well, you're not Roman Catholic, so you can't do that either. And I was like, God damn it, I'm gonna have to get a job.
Be a monk
But
in
like,
something. I'll show you.
yeah, right. So like it's one of those things of like cubicle job. Hell no. I'd rather be an artist starving on the
Mhm.
streets because then I can at least live with myself, you know.
Yeah.
But like as far as like actually making money on this kind of stuff, it's hit or miss, and it's all about popularity, which sucks, and it's about visibility as well. And man, fighting those algorithms
The
is
algorithms can
difficult.
seriously bite my butt. I'm so sick
Yeah.
of them. I have to play by the game, but like I don't know anybody that delights in actually trying to pick numbers apart.
Yeah, and if they do, they're probably a sociopath.
Ew.
But um before we call this a night, I kind of don't want to end on a downer. And I hate to put you on the spot like this, but do you
I knew
have
this.
any words of encouragement, or do you have any advice for any youngling artists out there?
Oh man, I was gonna end it on another negative note and say, hey, it's okay to feel confused. We are too. But
I mean,
honestly,
I think there's a bit of positivity in that.
yeah, honestly, I wouldn't. There's always like that kind of thing you hear, fake it till you make it. But truth be told, a lot of artists are pretty real about the fact that we kind of don't know what we're doing either. So there's no reason to get stressed, or, we've all dealt with imposter syndrome too. It really sucks. But instead of feeling like you could be afraid to talk about it, like artists usually open up about these things because we're very sensitive, emotional people that
Yeah.
have cool ideas. And so honestly, I think that like I grew up in an environment thinking that this was not a viable career path for myself, but you just kind of you can dip your toes in the water, you can try out
Mhm.
events, social media, like you, I mean, as much as we were kind of ranting about social media, like you can you can try and see about putting your portfolio on different sites that aren't just social sites, but things like behance.net or like ArtStation, where it's a little bit more art focused. There are options
Yeah.
for you, and you have plenty of time to explore them. There's no rush to start, and you typically, especially the art community that Jeff Folsham's talking to, are not the type to just dismiss people if they have questions.
Yeah.
We've all been there, and so we understand the struggle. So I would give that like some thought for anybody that's thinking of pursuing this career path. And not
Mhm.
only that, I love doing what I do every day. So
Me
I think
too.
I'll just try to, on a positive note, end it on that.
I also love doing what you do every day.
Hey, there you go.
Ah. Yeah, I think the only thing I would add to that is I think it goes for everybody else too. We're not just talking to artists. Everybody should be talking about like
Yeah.
finance and business and what and how they make their money. As one of these, like, it's like a faux pas here in the United States, right? Of you don't
Mhm.
talk about money, you don't talk about your salary, how much you make. But that only gives the power to the man, and we're not about that here. We're about taking
Oh,
down the man. Like,
I love
think
talking
about
about
it.
money.
You could be working an office job and you could be doing the same thing as somebody else. But if you don't know what they're making, you don't know if you're being underpaid. You don't know if like you obviously probably don't know if they've gone into their boss and asked for a raise, and the boss is, just sitting there like, "Oh yeah, we got some money in the budget for a raise. Sure. Have a raise," right? And they're the ones who asked for it, so they're the ones who got it, and there's no competition for it, right? So like I think we really need to kill the stigma of not talking about like personal
Yeah.
finances and business
Reach
and
out, get
how much
artist
people,
friends.
make, or how we make our money and things like that, right? Like,
Mhm.
get
Talk to
after
your
it,
artist friends about
folks.
money.
Right?
Form a support system. Do the things. Be invincible. Fight.
Yeah, exactly. Follow Wall Street Bets and invest in games. I can't
To the
even
moon.
I can't even say that with a straight face. But no,
Oh,
but
there's no
seriously,
way you
yeah.
can. It's all
It's
good.
I do feel strongly about that point though, is like especially like in the business sector, if you are working a cubicle job, if you're working a white collar job and you don't know how much your coworkers at the same level are making, you cannot know if you are being underpaid for your job. And the company's purpose, your boss's purpose, is to save the company as much money as possible and keep them as profitable as possible, and that means you get paid less.
Mm.
And that's not fair to the people who are working in any sector. um so yeah, go forth, talk about your money problems. We
Talk
do.
about We'll talk about your general artist problems, because any of the questions you've asked, all of your
Yeah.
favorite artists probably asked them first to people they knew when they were just as confused as we were. We're
Mhm.
all in this together. That is the most cliche thing ever, but it's true. It really is true. There's no
And
shame in just asking people and getting more information and things like that.
that's very true. And just to do a little bit of self promotion here for myself, I am doing a part of this thing that's going on with the Illustrati right now. If you search, if you go to the Ethan S. Brewerton podcast, if you head over to YouTube, check out his links. I'm pretty sure he's got like a link to the Discord in it. But this month, February, is also known as Figuary. There's a lot of figure study courses going on in various
Hmm.
realms. On February 18th, I believe, I will be doing a figures in comics sort of talk on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Folsham_art. Um, that is everything I plan on talking about on there is things that I have asked other artists and they have told me. So like Cryo was saying, if you have questions, ask them. you know uh I know both of us are
Do it.
very willing to talk about that kind of stuff, and if you catch us on stream, I know, at least on my behalf, speaking for myself here, if you ask me an art, like a specific pointed art question, I will probably stop what I'm doing and draw examples of how to explain what you want to know.
Yeah.
um but yeah, enough of that. Cryo, thank you so much for being here. Let the people know
For having me.
where they can find you on the internet.
Thankfully, I go by Cryomera on everything until maybe a 12-year-old is going to steal that name on some up and coming platform. It might happen. It may happen. No, but I go as Cryomera on Twitch. That is where you can actually interact with me real time as I'm carving and drawing. But if you just want to see my portfolio, I'm also very active on, and again, as Cryomera, Instagram, Twitter, ArtStation, Facebook, and a really outdated portfolio on cryomera.com. And last but not least, if you want to see some 15-second process videos, I also made a TikTok in the same name. I'm not proud, but you got to do what you got to do. But yeah, that is it's
Gotta keep up
honestly
with the
just Googling
times.
is the magic word. Yeah, exactly.
Gotta keep. Don't fall into the old person trap that I have.
I have this
You know.
cane that I'm waving right now. What a bummer.
I mean, I've been telling people to get off my lawn since I was in high school. So.
It's a great phrase.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, everybody go follow Cryo. She's an amazing artist. I
Thank
am
you.
quite I don't like to use the word envious, but if I was a
Do
talent
it.
vampire, she would be one of my victims. If
Don't
I
you
could
dare do
just
it.
suck the talent
Okay, that's pretty cool.
into my own body and use it for my own personal gain, that is
That's
what I would
metal.
do.
All right, thank you so
uh
much, dude.
Thank you for so much for being on the podcast. I had a blast. And to everyone listening, uh have a week.